So, what's your thoughts on self-checkout?
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to just really try to ruin my day.
I mean, that's coming.
Thoughts on self-checkout?
Yeah.
In general?
Yeah.
Very confused as to where this
Me
is
too.
leading.
It depends on how much stuff I have. But if I only have a few items, then I love a self-checkout. If I have a lot, I'm not doing that. There's no way.
Okay. I mean, there's a lot of people that's against self-checkout.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, I don't get paid to do this, right? Yeah, like that's the thing. So,
there's a lot of things that you do for yourself
it's not
that
my
you don't
job.
get paid to do. What?
So I was at Wawa before I came here.
I don't like talking to people. I love self-checkout.
I know, right?
Yeah.
I don't like people seeing what I'm buying.
Mm-hmm.
I don't
That's the other
understand.
thing.
It's not
too.
your business.
I don't understand how people will stand in line for 30 minutes and just waste 30 minutes of their life.
Yeah, I don't get that.
Yeah, I was at Wawa before I came here, and the line, there was like one person checking people out, and the line was like to the made-to-order food thing. Oh. And then I just walked right up to the self-checkout. Took me all of 30 seconds, and I was gone before the line even moved. And I don't know
that people know that Wawa has a self-checkout, though.
I mean, they were looking right at it, and they were looking at me and another guy using it.
Oh,
and they just stayed in line.
Did they
didn't
like
know
cigarettes?
until they saw you do it.
Huh?
Maybe everybody was getting cigarettes.
7
Well, yeah, I mean, cigarettes. I mean, I've seen.
I don't
know.
rethink your choices. If you're buying cigarettes at 7
There's a whole
a.m.
line of people. That's the only thing I can think of for them wanting to go that route.
Yeah, I mean, that's really the only thing. Maybe alcohol, but none of them had alcohol. I have seen the guy with a 12-pack of Miller High Life checking out at Wawa at 7 o'clock in the morning on a Monday.
Living life. Why not?
I mean, I was kind of jealous, if I'm being honest.
It's like, I've made the wrong choices.
Yeah,
This doesn't work for me. Oh, I would agree.
Yeah, I just don't like. I mean, how many times have I gone by, or you've gone by a Starbucks, and the lines around the building, and people are just waiting like an hour for their coffee.
Mobile checkout at that point.
Yeah, like I mean,
mobile checkout. I sit in my car for 2 minutes, walk in, grab my chai.
Yeah,
I don't want to have to get out of the car though. That's my thing. But I guess you can do the drive up now, right?
But then you'd still be waiting in the line.
Oh, that's true.
So
you don't have to talk to anybody then. Not really.
Yeah, you don't have to talk to anybody when you do.
That's true.
Checkout. You just go in.
You know what I do instead to avoid all of this is the grocery pickup or grocery delivery. Yeah. My favorite invention that ever existed. No,
I don't do that. I don't, because I'd rather, instead of spend money to have other people do it, I'll just do it myself.
No, like Walmart doesn't charge you, or Kroger. They don't charge you to do a pickup.
But the drive, well, I don't know. I like walking around those places.
Oh, see, I hate the grocery store. It's like an overstimulating nightmare to me. I hate
it.
Mm-hmm.
The new food line by our house, they call it Food Circle because it's at a roundabout. Because there's 97 food lions in New Kent, so each one has a different nickname, so you know which one you're talking about. Yeah. And
ours is next to a circle too.
Yeah, but they didn't put self-checkouts in that one yet, and it irritates me every time I go there.
There's not self-checkouts in that one?
The other one.
That's like,
no,
it's new.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
why is the newest one without? That's wild.
Yeah, so it's irritating when there's, lines out the ass and you gotta wait.
What are the code names for all the food lions in town? There's Circle Food Lion.
Yeah, there's Circle Lion. Then there's Bloom Lion because it used to be Blooms. I guess that used to be a thing. I don't know.
Okay. Do you know this?
Mm-mm.
Oh, okay.
I'm on the other side. We only have one.
Yeah, yeah. So there's literally three.
Is that the other side, Food Lion?
It's right.
The West Point one.
It's the it's the 60 Route 60 Food Lion. Even though Bloom Lion is on Route 60, but that one's Bloom Lion. So and then you have Route 60 Food Lion, which is Providence Forge, and the original, the OG Food Lion. You can throw a rock and hit the Bloom Lion with it. So there are literally 3 Food Lions within 5 minutes of each other.
That feels aggressive.
And 2 of them are within, 2 minutes of each other.
Whose idea was that?
I mean, Food
Do
Lions.
they all stay busy?
I guess busy enough because they just added
they
the
have
fourth
a real
one.
chokehold on New Kent. Like, how did you pull that off? That's what I want to know.
Well, Food Lion is they're the grocery store, just like Dollar General. They go into the more rural areas.
Oh, yeah.
Because Publix
and the Goochland. right next to the Family Dollar.
yeah, you got to have a Dollar General.
And the Chinese restaurant separating the two.
A Mexican and Italian place. They're like
literally
staples.
across the street. Yep.
Yeah, they're staples. So, yeah, for sure. So, but anyways, that was just my thought this morning as I'm watching 20 people standing in line at Wawa to pay for their water bottle.
A self-checkout was made for you, though.
It was.
There's nobody on this planet that appreciates a self-checkout more than Sidney.
No.
I love self-checkout.
No, that's why I like when people get in arguments online about it, about how much they hate it. I'm like, nah, you stand in line.
Please don't take it away.
Yeah,
please don't.
You can stand in line all you want.
No.
The most
I will go into the self-checkout with alcohol and make a worker come to me. Yeah. I'm not going into a line and have them see everything.
Yeah.
What
absolutely
are you buying
not.
that you're like so ashamed of at the Food Lion?
Nothing that I'm ashamed of. I just don't want people to know my business.
You don't gotta know me like that.
You don't gotta. I don't know you. You don't gotta know me. We're not at that level in our relationship yet.
And the one by the house, the new one, you can tell, like, at some point, the management's like, hey, you need to start talking and engaging with everybody at the checkout. And I've never wanted self-checkout more. Like, hey, man, I can tell this is awkward for you. You don't have to talk to me. Right?
Yeah. Don't talk to me.
We don't have to do small talk at the checkout. Like, I'm okay not talking. Like,
so for the grocery pickup, I also would rather be mad at myself than mad at somebody else for messing it up. You know
what's fun? Is that they will refund you, no questions asked.
Yeah.
So, like, if they send me produce that's gross or whatever, not to my liking, I can just be like, quality or whatever, and then they just give me my money back.
That's pretty nice.
So that's a win. Like, I don't have to take it back. I can just, like, it is what it is. And, I mean, it's a little annoying because then you have to go get what you want. But it's a risk I'm willing to take to not have to leave my car or go, because I hate a grocery store with everything in me. I hate it.
I mean, Cindy does that.
The pickup.
Like, I don't ever, of course, because I'm a man. When I go to the store, it's always 7 things. So I don't ever do the online checkout or whatever.
Yeah, the only time I've ever done that was I got an Apple Watch and it had to be pickup, and that was embarrassing because I forgot that the guy was supposed to be coming, and he took so long that I started jamming out in the car. So by the time he came up to my car, music was blasting, scared the crap out of me because he tapped on the window. So I screamed.
Naturally.
That was embarrassing.
When Cindy's out of town, like with the kids, she goes to visit her family. Like, I'll go to the store 5 days a week. I'll just go every night to get what I'm getting for dinner. I don't buy it all at once.
That stresses me out.
My mom's fiance.
What kind of psychopathic behavior is this?
My mom's fiance's favorite place is Walmart. He loves to go to Walmart. Like, we joke on him that when he retires, he's going to be one of the Walmart greeters.
Yeah, Probably. No, I've been to Walmart like 3 times in the last decade.
That's where he goes every Friday.
Ever since I've got
Friday.
Amazon Prime, I don't go to Walmart anymore.
Every Friday.
I do actually have I think I'll always have affections for Walmart because I lived in such a small town, and when we got a super Walmart, it was like a big deal, and that's like where we all hung out and whatever. So there's some good stuff in there.
Yeah,
if you haven't strolled to Walmart lately, you got to go. We'll go. Do you want to go after?
But there's people there, so that's the problem.
Yeah, but I'll go.
I like Walmart better than Target.
To talk to them. What?
I like Walmart better than Target.
I want to agree with you.
This is a hot take of mine. Yeah. Well, I feel like every time I've gone to a Target to get something, it's not there.
That's true. I feel like they're having some real stocking issues lately.
Yeah.
And or if I'm going for multiple things, I can get one thing and not find the other 3 things that I'm looking for.
Yeah.
You have to go to Target for something specific. I like their clothing. I don't.
I feel like their clothing has gone way downhill.
I
haven't bought anything from Target clothes-wise in forever because it sucks.
Bougie.
I haven't either.
Not bougie at
but
all. I'm a thrift store girly.
I haven't bought any clothing from there, but I like how it looks. I feel like it's more stylish.
Browse.
We're going to name that the title of this podcast.
What?
Mandy's bougie.
Why does everyone say that? I'm actually secretly the most frugal person. Out of our entire friends group, I'm probably... I can guarantee this, actually. I'm the one with the spreadsheet and the budgets and the sinking funds and Dave Ramseying this crap. I'm that girl.
Yeah.
And yet people think that I'm bougie. I'm like, no. I don't carry debt. I refuse. I don't get it. I don't know how I put off this air of so fancy. Aside from returning an Audi.
That's a different podcast.
That was the only thing I got crap for. They're like, who returns an Audi? And I was like, me, I didn't like it.
Right. So We're going to talk about contracts and agreements today.
All right.
Not
what a segue.
Not self-checkouts.
That's what I'm saying.
That was super natural.
I was like, wow, this is the most I've contributed to an episode.
It was just a random thought.
I wish we could just chit chat instead. But all right.
The self-checkout is dividing America. Okay, I just wanted to bring that up. So.
I think there's so many things dividing America.
No, it starts with self-checkout though. I'm for it.
That's what started the decline.
Yeah, the next presidential campaign, if they say we support self-checkouts, then you got my vote. I'm just letting you know.
You know who does
That's the only thing.
I'm saving self-checkouts.
I feel this way about daylight savings time.
Yeah.
If you say you're getting rid of daylight savings time,
100%.
I don't care what else you say.
Yeah,
you got it. I'll do it. I don't care. I don't care. Whatever comes next out of your mouth, don't care.
So go ahead.
So contract.
Go ahead.
What?
How can you get rid of that though? Isn't that like
a couple of states have already gotten rid of it?
There's states in the country that don't have daylight savings time.
Indiana or parts of Indiana, anyways, they don't. So if you live in Kentucky and you work in a place that got rid of daylight savings
I feel like you're pulling my leg.
No, this is true. Arizona.
Google it.
Where's another
Google
one?
it right now.
Yeah. Seriously.
Yeah.
This is a
Google
thing.
it right now. Indiana and I think Arizona. It's like
Arizona, I know.
Yeah,
What
it's
states?
like daylight savings times. Yeah, this is great content for people who are listening, watching YouTube. Google on your phone right now.
Well, they probably know. I wish we could have them call in and they would tell us.
This is wild. I don't.
Yeah.
That's why I think it's stupid.
I don't understand.
It already doesn't exist in different places.
Yeah, it's a made up construct, just like time in general.
Well, that's
what I'm saying. What?
No, it is. And I think it goes back to farming.
It does.
Right? But we don't grow our own food really here. So
But again, it goes back to a made up construct to begin with of time, right? Like I mean, there was farmers before we actually had clocks.
Right. So it's kind of silly.
You know, I'd be down for that because that means I wouldn't have to change the clock in my car
twice a year.
Yeah.
It's too much work.
I still don't. I don't. My clock says
it's old time and new time is what I go by. Like, hey, this is old time.
My clock says it's 3 p.m. right now.
You both leave your clocks?
Yeah,
you never move them?
Yeah, refer to old time and new time.
I have my phone on me, so I don't need to check the time in my car.
Yeah.
Speaking of psychopathic behavior,
yeah.
This is concerning. I'm rethinking our friendship right now. That's so chaotic.
Okay, I don't know how.
What time it is? Really?
I do know. I have my phone on me, and it's up in my hand, so I know what time it is.
Yeah, don't be ridiculous, Mandy.
I don't know how to change the time in my car.
And if we're being honest, I highly doubt farmers really go by a clock to begin with.
No, you think farmers give a crap? They know what they are doing.
Yeah,
they're not like, oh, the clock says I can't be growing. Like, what? This is so stupid. It's the dumbest concept. Anyway,
I don't even know what to Google for this. So far, I just have daylight savings, and that's it.
You're stressing me out.
It's daylight savings time.
What states
Alabama?
don't? Hawaii, Arizona.
Oh.
I think that's actually it.
And there's
Virgin
parts
Islands.
of Indiana. There's parts of Indiana.
Yeah, so there's some stuff in the Virgin Islands, Hawaii, and Arizona.
Don't participate.
Yeah, there you go.
I can't believe this is an optional thing.
Yeah.
Yup.
What?
That's why it's absurd. I would live in Arizona just to get rid of it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Courtney also thinks the government's here to help, so there's that.
Oh, she's young.
She's young.
She's like, no, I don't.
No.
Yeah. I think at this point, the younger generation has caught on that.
They're not.
No.
They're not. Yeah.
This isn't going how we thought it was going. Anyway.
All right, contracts.
Okay.
So I'm gonna bring up a segue into this that you're probably not going to like talking about, but I'm gonna do it anyways. Yeah. So there was a post last week by an agent who complained that.
Did I miss it?
No.
This is okay.
Yeah.
Yep, I know which one.
And stated that the inspection business must be slow because the inspector wrote up everything, right? And the real problem was that the buyer's agent sent an addendum for 20 to 30 repairs, whatever.
Well, those repairs were in the inspection, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
So they exist.
So the post lasted less than 15 minutes before it got taken down.
Yep.
But the point is and this is a running joke within the industry, is that the inspection industry is the one job that the better you become at it, the less work you can get. Because there's people like that, right? That don't like the fact that that's literally what we do. I mean, that's our job. Our job is
that's what
to
I
write
find
up
bizarre
things.
is like, hey, this is your job and this is what you're supposed to do. And also bummer that my house was crappy enough that you found a whole bunch of problems.
Yeah, so that's
like, why
that's
isn't that
the
thought process?
Is
like, why
that
are
you have
Yeah. Why are you blaming you and not the house?
Yeah,
like,
unless it's your flip, and then we get our feelings hurt.
But
and I don't know if that's true or not. I'm just saying in general, right? Because we see that a lot. But it's a reflection of either a poor quality job or that the house was not taken care of properly.
Yeah.
And if someone's spending a few $100,000, they don't want to come in and have to spend another $40,000 on repairs because it's a lot of money. You know, regardless of what we think the quality of a $200,000 house is in 2025, they still don't want to have to come in and spend.
Well, and this is what irks me too, is that people are so uneducated on where the market stands right now. Sellers are, I love you guys. Okay, I love you. But you're out of your minds. Yeah. Okay. That ship is sailed where you get to tell everybody to kiss your hiney. It's gone, baby. Okay. We're in desperate times as sellers, a little bit. Yeah. It's still a seller's market, but like, yeah, you got to do repairs. The buyers are going to ask for some stuff. Like it's their time to shine now, a little bit.
And if we're being honest, it's actually the opposite when the inspection industry gets slow. We don't write up more. No. There are some companies that will lower their prices and write up less to try to get more business from agents because they think writing softer reports leads to more business.
That's so crappy.
It is. It is. But I've seen it happen. So it's actually the opposite. It's not for everybody, of course, but I've seen companies like they've lowered their quality because I've seen the reports.
Which is so wild to me because Sidney, who pays for your fee?
The client.
The client.
Yeah. Yeah.
The client is paying you to ask you to come in and find every single thing, major or not so major, or even just maintenance items.
But this is where we get into where does the referral come from? Agents hold that power in theory, right?
No.
So
the client, now we're going to go on. Now we're going to fight. No. I understand what you're saying. Yeah. And like, yes, but no.
Yeah.
Because the client has a right to decide who they hire. Now, people ask me all the time, Mandy, who would you recommend?
Sure.
And I'll give you a list, right? Yeah. And I'll say, listen, here's a list. Here's some people that I usually work with. Out of those three, Sidney's the one that I typically see people use the most.
Who's on your list?
I'll show you later. And I tell them, right? Like, go ahead, do your research, look up reviews, figure out what you want to do, and when, guess who's doing my home inspection on Friday, right? Yeah. Like, I tell them that, sure. Right? Like, if I were hiring somebody for my personal home, it would be Sid, right?
Sure.
But as an agent, it's not your decision. And this is where agents need to be really careful because a lot of times they'll give one name, right? And lenders get mad at me too for doing this. They're like, just tell them to use me. And I'm like, I can't. Per my license, I have to give them options.
Yeah.
It's not a good idea for me to be like, hey, use Sid, no matter what. No, yeah. I will give you options and I will tell you I work with Sid quite a bit. And here's what I like about this company, but the others are great as well. And here's some pros on them. Do what you will with the information.
Sure.
But no, it's not the agent is the source of the referral. Agents should watch their heinies with that.
Yeah.
That's a bad idea.
100% agree.
Thanks for my TED Talk.
So the question from this particular issue comes in when it comes to the contract. What is the buyer or the buyer's agent's right when it comes to asking for things?
Hold on. Say that again. What is their right?
The root issue of this was that the buyer's agent sent over a repair addendum that had 20, 30, 40 things, right?
Because her client probably directed her to do that. Yeah.
So what does the contract state that you can and can't ask for? Like what's legit? Or is there anything?
In our purchase agreement? Yeah, there is. And we go over this. You watch me do this with people. We go over paragraph 16 during their home inspection of like, here's what you can ask for, here's what you can't ask for. But here's the thing, Sid, and this is what I tell folks, and this is what they need to keep in mind. This is what the contract defines as a defect. Mm-hmm. If you don't like something about this house and you want to ask for it and you want to shoot your shot,
ask for it.
It's America. Do what you want.
Which we've also seen, I call it the nuclear option. They don't want the house.
Yeah, so they just blow it up.
They ask for everything.
Yeah, they're like, I want new carpets. I want you to fix the dents in the walls. I want a Ring doorbell. Like, I mean, you can ask for all sorts of stuff, right? Like, that is the reality, right?
So there's nothing prohibiting, per the contract, a buyer. Because isn't there like another box in there just saying like other things, right? Like a additional. You can just ask like credit for a carpet, right?
Yeah, but that's separate. That would be a separate portion. But as far as the inspection paragraph and what you're kind of required to do, it is defined in the purchase agreement, but it doesn't stop somebody from asking. However, where people need to be very careful is if you're asking for things that are not defined defects and a seller says no to doing them, you cannot terminate based off of that, right? Like you can't say, oh, the carpet's worn down, I want all new carpets in the house. If the seller says no to that, that's not a defined defect. They're not in breach of contract. So you can't terminate based off of, well, they wouldn't give me new carpets.
Sure.
That's not a defect.
I mean, my experience, and it's very limited to seeing the actual negotiations, is when that stuff gets put in there, it's already agreed upon.
Yes.
Like, hey, we're going to give you a $5,000 credit for new carpet.
And that's actually, you would see that in their purchase agreement ahead of time.
Right.
I mean, as long as their agent wasn't a complete dingus float. Like,
Sure.
it should be in there.
It should be. Sometimes it doesn't make it until later stages or whatever. Which is the inspection.
Be wild, but sure.
Yeah.
If your agent sucks.
I've seen some things.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? And that's the side note to that is, we get told all the time by agents and their experience in 20 years and blah, blah, blah. But when you're doing, 1,300 inspections a year as a company, plus or minus. Yeah. Well, we see a lot of things, right? Because the average quote unquote agent does what, 6 to 10 deals a year.
Not even. I don't think. I mean, if we're going off of last year was a rough year for the agents.
We'll call it 10, right? Just to make it easy. And if half is listing, half is buyers, that's five. Over 20 years. That's 100 home inspections. We do more than that in a month. So that's where, like I said, well, this is what I've seen from my experience. We're not realtors by any stretch, but we do overhear things and we're around it a lot.
Right.
But
you have eyeballs on a lot of inspections.
Yeah. Right. So the interesting thing is, and I'm pretty sure we've talked about portions of the contract before.
Portions of the
contract.
Yes.
But we haven't really talked about the inspection agreement. And what brings this up is we've done a couple of CE classes lately. And part of the CE classes that I do is we talk about some of this stuff, right? Agents don't get a copy of the inspection agreement. But the first thing that's important to know is that we send out an agreement to the client. And when they sign that, they become our client. Right. And that's important because I say often, every once in a while, we'll get that, like, who are you to talk to my client kind of thing? Who are you to tell them anything? Well, they're my client too.
Can I offer you a piece of advice then that might help you with some of this drama? Because that's absurd that they're even saying this.
Yes.
Do you send them a copy to review as their representation?
The agreement?
Yeah.
It's strictly to the client.
Interesting. Because I wonder then, right? Like then we're eliminating a whole bunch of issues that I'm sure you face after the fact from agents who sit on a very high horse. And
but
are like,
that's also, they don't read their emails to begin with.
Well, yeah.
So they're definitely not going to read the agreement for the buyer either.
Right. Especially if you so for example, like a lot of my clients will ask me, who do you recommend? And I'll give them a list. And I tell them if I was to hire somebody, it would be Sid, but hire who you want, do what you want. So then a lot of my clients do use you. So if you keep sending me the same agreement over and over again, you're right. I'd probably be like, Sidney, I don't care.
Yeah.
Thank you so 100%. Much. I know what it says.
Yeah. So there's some things that we're required by law to put in our agreements.
Like what?
License number for the inspector, the price, the cost, the date, the address, the basic stuff really. And then there's some lawyer things that we're supposed to put in there, which is, what's excluded. We're not required to report a mold and things like that. But the biggest thing, and I don't want to say it's a secret because anybody can read the report or the agreement, but no one does, is what we call our get out of jail free card, which is if you feel like you have a claim against a home inspection company, how do you go about doing that? Just like any contract, there's steps. Mm-hmm. If you have a claim, right? Or you want to get out of the contract or whatever it is. But as soon as you skip one of those, then you're in breach of that contract. And now any complaint you have is null and void. So if we go to court and you didn't follow it, and I can prove you didn't follow it, it's going to get thrown out, right? So
sounds friendly.
It is. So, and this is why it's important. And once out of every, 200 inspections, I'll get an email asking questions about the agreement,
After the fact?
No, before the fact. And these are the people who are really OCD about that kind of thing. And they go line by line and they have questions, right? Mm-hmm. What does this mean? What do you mean don't test for radon? All that stuff. But the biggest thing with the contract is if you feel like you have a claim against an inspector. And most contracts are pretty similar because our basis or our foundation for our contracts start from one of the associations, right? Because they have templates. And like Internachi has a template that's kind of based for Virginia, for whatever state you're in. And then, we send it to an attorney and they tell us, yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's not. And I know an attorney has reviewed our contract on more than one occasion. For various reasons, but it's a pretty solid contract. And one of the first things is if you have what you feel is a claim, is you need to notify the inspection company in writing within 7 days of noticing the defect. Mm-hmm. So if you call me and you say, "Hey, think you missed this and we have a leak," okay, when did you first notice it? Oh, 2 months ago. Cool.
Well, yeah, because it could have just been you're going to accrue more damage over time.
Correct.
So that's really annoying.
Yes.
To 2 months later be like, oh, weird, this leak didn't go away. And now there's a ton of drywall damage and the problem's bigger.
Yep. You also need to, you're not allowed, quote unquote, you're not allowed to go ahead and call a contractor. We're the first call. And the reason being is that we need to authorize that contractor, not because we care about the contractor, but there's been a couple times where we have seen the contractor has been called, repairs have been made, and then you call us after the fact. Well, we don't even know what the issue was.
Right.
Was it a hidden issue?
Right.
Yeah.
You can't just slap us with a bill for something that wouldn't have been your issue.
Right. Or did you just want to upgrade? I've seen that.
Yeah.
I've gotten that phone call.
Did you cause a problem?
I've gotten that phone call because they bought a house and everything was original. It was like around a 2000-ish build, right? Mm-hmm. And so everything, dishwashed, everything was, 20 years old.
Yeah.
And I got a phone call and they said that it was leaking and that we missed it, quote unquote. And some other stuff that didn't make sense just because of the layout of the kitchen. I said, okay. I said, yeah, we've already had it replaced. I'm like, okay, well, send me the report from the contractor stating what the issue was. Never got it. And well, send me the invoice for everything. Never got it. Because there was nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
They just wanted to upgrade dishwashers, right? So they were just trying to get us to pay for it by saying that we missed something, right? So that's why we say those things. Now, if it's like a plumbing leak and water's going everywhere, we're going to say, hey, it's an emergency situation. Go
hire
ahead
somebody
and get out. But also we want our own contract. Either we want access to, and that's also in the contract, that we have the right to immediate access to the property. So we can come out and look at it ourselves.
Well, and I think, too, what people overlook, because I think some people may take the stance of okay, well, you want to hire your contractor so that they can say that it's this, right? Like, you want to control the situation. It's well, actually, a lot of times from our end, us controlling the situation works in your benefit because we have relationships with these contractors. My tradesmen and the vendors and stuff, we've talked about this. I value the hell out of those guys. I will spoil the hell out of you because when I need you, guess who shows up? Guess who's real fast to fix problems? Because it's me asking, not you.
And on our end, because again, this is all based off experience, is that we have seen that if a contractor that you've hired comes in and they know that there was a home inspector involved, all of a sudden it goes from an issue that may or may not have been related to the inspection, and we may or may not have missed it, to, home inspector should have caught that. They're liable to pay for this.
Yeah.
And then the price goes up.
Yeah.
Before we even get contacted. And now once we find all this stuff out, now you're stuck with an $8,000 bill that really was probably $1,000 bill before.
Right, but they marked it up and made it a whole thing.
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
They did. They start adding things, or they start upselling things that's not actually true. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying every contractor does that, but we have seen that happen to where our contractors will go out there and I've gotten that phone call hey, yeah, probably should have caught this, right? And I've also had that like, no, there's no way. This is outside of your scope. You would have never seen this. This isn't your problem. So they're very, very honest about that. Right?
Well, and I think it's like, okay, if you have like the point to this process is to give you the opportunity to make it right.
Correct.
And if you want to hire somebody else and have somebody else come out and compare the two and figure it out, it's like, okay, great. That's great. Here's what we are willing to do based off the information that we've gathered. Because then, I mean, if you have a $2,000 repair versus $8,000 from your guy, it's like, that's a huge, be so serious, you know? So if it helps you sleep at night to have a second opinion, which I totally get, like, I get it, right? I think you should. It's a lot of money. But the point is to give you guys the opportunity to do everything that you can to make it right. And I will say, as far as the way that your company works from an outside perspective, like there's a ton of integrity for the work that you guys do and your desire to make things right if it really was a screw up on your end. Even I've seen you guys do stuff that like it really wasn't, but it's like, let us try to figure out, like we have relationships with vendors to see if we can't figure out something as a compromise, you know, even though, and you watch people, your reviews say this all the time too, where they're like, he did this or this, even when they didn't have to, which is huge. Right. Like, it's not that you're trying to skirt around something with your agreement. It's that you're like, give me the opportunity to do what I can 100%. Here.
Yeah, I mean, and perspective is important. So, like last year, we were right around 1,300 inspections for the year, right? And out of 1,300, less than 5 resulted in a phone call or an email of some sort.
Yeah.
And out of those 5, 1.
Yeah.
And that one that was legit really wasn't legit because it wasn't an issue. Like, it was a roof leak, right?
Yeah.
And when we come to find out, there wasn't an actual roof leak. It was a condensation issue. Perfect circumstances. But I did find some mechanical damage to the shingles that should have been in the report. Yeah. Now, per the roofer, it'll never leak, right? It's not an issue. But I also told the homeowner, like, hey, this should have been in the report. It's not an issue. Your roof's not leaking. But I'm happy to pay for this repair right here because it should have been in the report.
Right.
You know, because that's just like, I didn't want to lie, right? And tell them like, nope, there's nothing wrong with it. You know, so again, out of 1,300, maybe 1. And if they would have never had that condensation issue, it would have never been an issue. Would never came up. So it's not like we get these all the time. But it's also important to know that, like I said, there is a process that should be followed. And you're right. It's an opportunity for us to make it right.
And this is where I get kind of fussy with agents. And if I can give any advice from a fellow realtor friend, is like, stop assuming the worst about your home inspector.
Yeah.
Like, especially if it's somebody that you referred. And if you're going to refer somebody or somebodies, because you should per your license, make sure that those are people that, like, anybody who's on my vendor list truly has worked on my personal homes.
Yeah.
Like, it's a requirement. Yeah. I need to know that, like, I would trust you tinkering around in my assets versus somebody else. That sounded, but you know what I mean? Like, I don't.
I mean, you finished the word assets. So I thought we were stopping.
I knew you were going to, but like, I don't like when realtors automatically hear a problem from their client, which is, this happens a lot, right? I think that realtors think that the frustration's coming at them from the client, that something's going on with their house. And so then they automatically shove it onto the home inspector instead of like, it's a panic. It's this panic response of like, oh my gosh, they're going to be mad at me. Like, I didn't do it. I didn't know. I'm not a home inspector, you know? Right. And then they start freaking out instead of like, just stay calm. Just be like, dang, that sucks. Let me see what I can do. Let me make some phone calls. What's going on right now? Does it need to be handled right this second? Like, let me, and I don't understand why the approach has to be so place blame immediately and start demanding money and all of that. Like, and it's interesting because the first time that I ever called you on, it's the only time actually, she had lived there. It was my girlfriend. Yeah. She's the best. So she bought her house and she moved in later. She'd lived there for a whole week. And there was an issue because her washing machine got installed and it presented a plumbing issue that we wouldn't have known because there was no washing
There was
machine.
no washer, so you can't test it.
No. So we had no clue. And it took her a week of living there before this issue even became a thing because a new appliance was introduced.
Yeah.
But when I called you, you immediately were like, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to send somebody out? Are you looking for money? And I was like, no, Sid, I'm looking for like advice. Like I'm looking for like your expertise of like, do you have any idea what it could be? Do you have resources for people who maybe I can call? Like, but it is interesting because it's like, hey, you guys, like that's what it looks like behind the scenes. Like give him a chance to figure it out with you. Like he's not the one who's like, well, my contract says I don't have to pay for anything, so screw you. Like you do go immediately into like problem solving of how do we help? What do we do?
Well, and again, we've talked about this before. Off of this is that it's all in how you approach it.
Yeah.
Right. If you approach me from like the roof situation, like I didn't have to pay for that.
No,
right?
not at all.
Like I mean, I could
I remember that one, and I was like, why are you?
But
doing
because the client was so chill about it and understanding and wasn't being angry and blaming and hanging up on us and yelling and screaming, like I want to work with you, right?
Yeah.
I want to make you happy because you're not being a complete ass about it.
Yep.
So if you come at me. And because I guarantee you, all the phone calls we've had over, 6,000-7,000 inspections that we've done in the last 5 years, out of the phone calls that we've had or emails, the ones that I'll work with are the ones that come at me in a professional way or a nice way. But I want to say, I could probably say 100%, but probably 99% just to be safe is I don't have to do anything, right? Like if we go through the report, we go through the contract, we go through all the things that you should be reading, we're good on all of it.
Yeah.
And so the ones that come at me sideways are the ones like, yeah, I mean, as my daughter says, that's a womp for you. And it's not me being mean, but
right.
Like the one and only time I've got a letter from an attorney. The client went straight to the attorney. Yeah. Every picture in that attorney's pocket was in the report. Their family member was the agent, and they sold him a bad house.
Yeah.
And we told him in the report that it was a bad house. And then you closed, and all the things happened because it was a bad house.
I have to chime in just a little bit because I do have to defend my people, kind of. Are there times where there are crappy agents who let you buy a bad investment? Yes. But are there times where I am the agent telling you, read this entire report, we're going to go through it. People say that they're okay taking something on, not knowing how big the problem is, or taking a credit when I'm telling them, hey, look, if you take a credit for $5,000 and this turns into a $10,000 problem, you're going to be real upset. Yeah. Don't be upset at Mandy because we either need to ask for the repair and figure out the full scope.
Yep.
But if you accept just a credit and hope and pray that everything's okay, that falls on you, and don't you dare get to come back at Mandy and be like, it's Mandy's fault, she sold us a crap house.
Oh, 100%.
So there's a finesse to that of like, it's not always the agent.
It is not.
It's not always the agent's fault that they like sold him a bad house. It's sometimes people don't listen when you're talking at inspections. The amount of times that I'm like, eyes on Sidney. Hello, he's talking. Like, listen to him, right? And they don't read their reports or they don't fully comprehend what it is that's saying. Like I ask people all the time, do you understand what this verbiage is saying? Do you understand the problem here? And if they don't, and if their agent isn't going to hold their hand, because that is my job, right, is to make sure that you feel empowered. But I mean, that's where it gets interesting is the amount of blame that gets put on everybody else when it's like, hold on, this was your home inspection that 100%. You paid for your asset that you wanted to acquire with your loan. Like, hold on. Yeah. Where does the accountability lie?
Well, this one, and I agree, right?
Yeah.
And most of all of the agents that work with us are agents that get it, right?
Yeah.
And they do that. This particular case was not the case.
No.
I know a lot of the backstory in that one. But like I said, once you went straight to an attorney.
Yeah.
Like, we're done.
Yeah.
Like, we're not. Because I sent it to my attorney, like, what do you think? He says, throw it away.
Right.
and he's like, you don't have to do anything.
Right. You put it in a situation to where it's not in your best interest as a company then to communicate. Like, it would be communications through an attorney because you took it there. Yeah. You went 0 to 60.
100%.
And that's why I tell people, like, it's very, like, we have an attorney on staff, right? it's very rare that I pull out the big guns and send a lawyer letter. It is very, very rare, because once you do that, you've kind of, you
shut off negotiations and conversations. Yeah.
Like I don't want to pull that card until it really is like a, hey, we're done talking. This is what this is. Yeah. And that's not in your best interest to do that until you reach that point. Otherwise,
100%.
100%. Oh, that's just, you went 0 to 60.
Yeah. Another case that we had, the buyer's agent called me, and this was months later, and it was a early 2000s house, and I did the inspection about this time of year, maybe a little bit later, but it was cold, so the HVAC was old, and I couldn't check the cooling because it was cold, and it was for the an elderly couple, right? They wasn't there, or no, they were there actually at the inspection, and I told them all the things that we always tell them, like, hey, it's cold. I can't check the air conditioning.
You don't want us to check the air conditioning.
20 years old. It's past its life expectancy. I can't promise anything once it gets warm.
Yeah.
And the report says that. The report has a thing. It's our automatic checklist that on every single report, we recommend having the HVAC service and maintenance prior to the end of the due diligence period, right?
Yeah.
Because we can only look at it, right? We can't take it apart. We can't put gauges up to it. We can't do anything.
Yeah.
And then we have another one saying it's at or past its life expectancy. You need a budget for repairs, blah, blah, blah. And the daughter called the agent all kinds of angry, looking for money and because it's not working. So that's when the agent he called me and he was like, just giving you a heads up. I said, hey, man, I appreciate that. I said, but you don't have to deal with this. Like, this is a me issue. You can send it my way. He's like, no, we've already sent your report and to the attorney. This is going back to what I referenced earlier. We've had attorneys look at our contracts, and the attorney called us back laughing. He says, y'all's good. He says, there's nothing. He says, I've looked at the report. I've looked at the agreement and y'all's good. Like they don't have a leg to stand on is what he said. And the problem just went away. Right. I say a problem, but because
again, the problem stayed where the problem should stay.
Right.
Right. It doesn't mean the problem goes away. It just means like, this is your home. It is your asset that you acquired with your home inspection, who you hired. And that is the bummer. That is the bummer.
And as we've talked about before, you bought a used house.
You did. And even if you buy a new one, as the girl who has done custom, beautiful new homes for the majority of my career, they're still man-made products. Yeah. Right? There is nothing guaranteed. It's the same thing with buying a brand new car.
Yeah.
It's why warranties exist.
And if we go into the house and you have a $12,000 to $15,000 HVAC repair bill that's coming due and you can't afford it, then you can't afford that house.
That's a topic for another day. It really is. It really is, because I don't think agents are well trained on this, and we're all trying to stay in our own lanes, right? And even lenders, but buying a house is a risk, right?
Yes.
It is investing. Any sort of investment, it can either go really, really well, it can be okay, or it can go horribly wrong.
Yeah.
Right? Like any investing that you do. So, you're buying something that it's going to break at some point. Stuff's going to break.
Yeah.
Whether it's a really big thing, which the point of the home inspection is to make sure that something really, really big doesn't break, or you at least know ahead of time this really, really big thing is breaking, and you get to decide if you're okay with that or not. Yeah. Right? Like the home inspection really isn't like there's these piddly repairs. Like when people are like, my dishwasher went out, and I'm like, okay, you live there for 2 years, buy a new dishwasher. Baby girl, you have 5 kids. You've been running that thing. Yeah. It's like, how much is a dishwasher? Right? Like, so I just am thinking like, okay, your home inspection really, what we really want to see here is there major, massive defects within this home?
Which is, the dishwasher is like a great example. Mm-hmm. I run the dishwasher one time.
Right.
Once.
With nothing in it.
Nothing in it most of the time, right?
Yeah.
One time. And after you've moved in and you've ran it 7, and now there's an issue, you're like, well, okay. Like you ran it 7 times with no problems, right?
And if you're one of those people who like doesn't pre-wash your dishes and you're just throwing stuff in there and you're clogging up the sides, like,
don't
baby,
be judgy. Don't judge people.
I'm gonna a little, but it's like, hello, like this is, you're living in your home. You're creating situations and environments that are different than what we're creating in a home inspection. Yeah. There's only so much that we can do in a 2 to 3 hour window.
Right, exactly.
For a home inspection.
Yeah.
And I wish Sidney could hang out there all damn day. Like,
I know.
You know?
Me too.
You could take a bath, you could run a shower, you could watch a movie, cook something, like see what's happening, but that's not what we're here to do.
Yeah, and that's the thing when it comes to inspections, and we've gone through 7 rainstorms, 10 rainstorms. We had 12 inches of rain in the last month, and now I have a roof leak. Well, okay, but you didn't have a roof leak in the 11 inches prior to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, it took that many for you to discover a problem, and you expected me to find it when we hadn't had rain in 2 weeks, and I was there for 2.5 hours.
This is my pro tip. If you can, I love to schedule home inspections when rain is predicted. Yeah. Like if it is raining on home inspection day, I'm like, this is a gift from the gods. I'm so excited because it will tell you so much, right? But unfortunately, we live in the South, so it's either going to be torrential downpour or we're in a drought. There's really not really an in-between.
No in-between, yeah.
But yeah, I think it's one of those things, like you got to be so serious about this. You have to understand that stuff's going to go wrong.
And if you read not just the agreement, but the report, at least our report, that first page tells you all these things. Mm-hmm. It tells you that we find an issue. Don't be surprised if the contractor finds additional issues as they go deeper into that original issue, right? Mm-hmm. It may spread. You know, they may come out because we write up that the exhaust on the HVAC is done incorrectly. They may come out and say, oh, well, actually, you have that and these other 3 things. Yeah. Because their sole job is to look at the HVAC. Yeah. Our job is to look at 5,000 different things.
Right.
So don't be surprised if their scope expands.
Right.
Based on what they're looking at, because that's what they do.
And you're not a specialty trade.
Right.
Like, this is what I tell people all the time. And I actually am starting to create marketing documents for this, where it outlines the additional inspections that are available to you and what secondary inspections look like and why they may be necessary. Yeah. Because I think a lot of people think, oh, well, I got a home inspection, I'm good. I'm like, that's a broad overview. Yeah. If he finds an issue, I mean, how many times have you found, I mean, there was the one with the sump pump. You were like, this could be upwards of $18,000. Scared the crap out of my client, right? But I was like, I love Sid, but we're going to get somebody in here to figure out what the hell's going on, because $18,000. Like, a lot. Yeah. And sure enough, you hire a specialty trade, you figure out what's going on. It was nowhere near that, right? Sure. But it could be. Could be. Your job is to tell them this could be really bad.
And a lot of that stuff is me sending pictures and texts to the guy, and they're not there. So they're like, well, it could be, right? Until 100%. They get there and they see all the things. And like, no, actually, we're good, right? This and this is okay, but we just got to fix this one problem.
Right. And I think as agents, it's our job to reel the client back in and be like, this sounds so scary. Let's figure out if it actually is so scary.
Because again, I can't take 2 hours of researching one particular issue when I have an entire house to look at.
Or structural issues. I'm like, I love Sid, but I don't think you want him determining how likely your house is to fall right down. You probably want an engineer for that.
Probably
like,
do. Probably
you probably want the guy whose job is this.
Yeah. So, I mean, at the end of it, like, again, we can talk about how much money these houses are costing.
Yeah.
And if you're that concerned or you're that invested, read the agreements.
Right.
And I know the reports are long, but read the report. And those first couple pages, and in our reports, the standards of practice at the end. Yeah. So that last page on the PDF version, those are important.
Yeah.
Because the C class I did yesterday, somebody asked about what's it, refrigerator? You wasn't paying attention.
No. It was
it was refrigerator. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And because she asked, like, hey, what happens if an inspector misses things? I said, well, every question is going to start with depends. That's the answer. Depends. Uh-huh. And it was in relation to an appliance, which was the refrigerator. Like, it wasn't cooling anymore. I was like, well, one, that's why we do thermal imaging. And we put it in the report so I can prove to you that day it was working. And I said, but if we're being honest, there is nowhere in the standards of practice, which is legislated in the law, that requires us to inspect appliances.
Mm-hmm. You don't have to do that.
Yeah. There's also nothing in our purchase agreement.
Yeah, whether it's movable ones like washers and dryers, or fixed like refrigerators. I say fixed, but
right, a refrigerator is technically personal property in our world.
Yeah, microwave oven. I said we are not required. It's outside of. I said, do we? reputable home inspectors will.
Right.
But we're not required. So it's
Right.
actually, there's nothing that addresses. I even went home and I went through both the InterNACHI SOPs and the state law, and neither one of them address kitchens or appliances.
And this is where I think you need to be really careful with who you hire as far as representation as your agent, because like every single one of my listings in paragraph 23, like I talk about this with sellers and we decide, but usually what you're going to see is chimney, flue, fireplace, all appliances, fence, shed, porches, decks, whatever, convey as is.
Yeah.
Because it's like, okay, the inspector can take a look and they can tell you some information about it. But again, you're not an appliance dude.
No.
You don't know.
No.
And so as soon as that's in the purchase agreement, it's like, yeah, it goes back to your original question. Can they ask for it? Sure. Are we required to do it? No, because it was in our agreement that it's as is. You're taking it or leaving it. Which one is it?
Right. So, yeah. So, I mean, like I said, it just all goes back to read what it is that you're doing. Right. I mean, I joke that our agreements is the get out of jail free card because no one reads them.
Right.
But they're not, because it's right there for everybody to see. Like, we're not hiding things. We're not hiding anything.
That's every agreement.
Yeah.
This is how
and
I
it's
feel
not fine
about mine
print.
too.
Like, it's not fine print. It's literally regular print.
And it tells you how to fire me, and it tells you how to send you to jail.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you're really that mad, like that's why I always tell people, read these agreements and understand, because it protects me as much as it protects you.
Yeah.
If I suck at my job, it tells you verbatim how to get rid of me.
Sure.
What?
Sure.
Like, read what you're signing.
Yeah.
It's so wild.
It really is. It really is. And for us, sometimes there's short turnaround times. We had one come in last night around 7:30 for 1:30 today, right? But most of the time, we put it in on a Monday, inspections on a Friday. So you got 5 days. You got 5 days to look at everything. Even if it came in last night and this afternoon, you still have time. We're not talking about a novel. You have plenty of time.
Yeah.
So the fact that, again, one out of every, I don't know, I mean, it's been a while since I've even had an email. So it's probably more than one out of every 200 inspections, probably one out of every 500 inspections. I get an email or a phone call like, hey, the client has questions about the agreement.
Yeah.
Because if you actually read it, you're going to have questions.
Yeah.
Because it's inspector language, right? And it's legal language. And so you're going to have questions. What do you mean you don't look for this? What do you mean you don't report on that? Well, radon's a gas, right? I can't see gas. This is additional. So if you actually read it, you're going to have questions.
Do you guys that's a good question for you, actually. So when somebody goes to book a home inspection, does it go down their options as far as like, do you want radon? Like, is that an option?
There's ancillary services on the website. Mm-hmm. But once they book, if like the agent just books it, right? Or the client, but a lot of times if it's just the agent, once they get the email has a link to the client portal, and the client portal has a list of ancillary services such as radon, mold, sewer scopes.
So if they're not reading that though, like this is where I always tell agents to be really careful of like, hey, are you letting them know you have your home inspection, your general home inspection, but if you want additional inspections like a radon, or, if you want a specialty trade to come out for something specific, then that needs to be separate.
Yeah.
Especially mold is a big one that I see.
Mold is a big one because mold is not. Now again, we report if we see it, but mold's excluded. So if you call me and say, "Hey, you didn't tell me there was mold in the walls, or mold in the crawl space, or mold in the attic," don't have to.
Those are latent defects. We don't know.
We don't have to.
Can't just bust open their wall.
Yeah. And because I've had that conversation with agents, like, "Hey, I had an inspector, and the crawl space was full of mold. It wasn't a report." I said, "You've got nothing. We're not required to report on it."
Yeah.
If it's causing damage, we report on damage. But if it's just there, then we're not required to report on it.
No.
So, from when you're looking at the contracts, all that stuff, like I said, the ancillary service, because again, if you're reading the agreement, you're going to see that we don't test for mold, we don't do radon, blah, 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 and all that stuff. But I can tell you, again, goes back to nobody reads it, because when we send out the automated text, big capital letters, automated text, do not respond.
They still respond.
And at the bottom of that, it tells you what number to call. Fortunately, I haven't set up to go to my email, right? Because
otherwise, it would just go into the abyss.
It would. I have that option. Mm-hmm. I don't have to receive any of it. But I still get from agents and clients, responses to that. And I got to screenshot it, send it to the office, call these people, Tell them to stop doing this.
There's so many.
Just turn it off. You get what you get. If you can't read, it's dead to me.
Yeah. The problem is every now and then, every now and then I'll get that one we need to cancel. So I can't have the inspector showing up, right?
Yeah,
but otherwise, like it's gotten to the point where I do ignore them. Like, hey, it tells you don't respond to this. Like this isn't automated. This is a ghost number basically. Like it doesn't go to any phone.
Emails that we have automated emails as well, and they respond to that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
all the time.
All the time.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, it goes back to they're not reading, because in the client portal it tells you if you want these ancillary services, they need to be scheduled 4 to 8 hours in advance.
I got somebody who Todd sent me this. They asked for termite and radon in the automatic email. They were like, "Hey, can we get this?" Even though in the client portal they can like put it at it themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. But we require 48 hours notice if you want serious scope, things like that, because it takes time to set it up.
Yeah.
And if the inspection's on Monday, and the reason why it's 48 hours is because if it's on Monday, I'm not calling anybody on Saturday to set it up.
Yeah.
Right. Because some of the stuff we sub out.
Yep,
and I'm like, I'm not stressing everybody out. But we get that same day. Right. Like, oh, well, you've had 7 days to figure this out. And the day of the inspection, you're adding all this stuff.
Well, and my thing is too, like you have a set discovery window here, which again goes back to your agent. Like if you're setting your discovery period for 3 days, like no, no, bad idea. Yeah. Like you have this period of time that the sellers have agreed that you get to look at whatever it is you want to look at with whoever you want to look at it with. Yep. So use that time.
Yeah. So like I said, it just goes back. I mean, we've had agents show up, and in the emails to the agents, it says inspections are blocked out for a minimum of 3 hours. And they show up like, "Hey, are you going to be done in an hour?" No, it's 3 hours. Well, I didn't know that. I've got appointments.
If you do any amount of business, you know how long home inspections take. Yeah. I don't have sympathy for
I mean, the good news is we can go into our system and we can see which emails have been opened and which ones haven't. So,
yeah.
A lot of them haven't.
Yeah, a lot of them haven't.
No, that's how Mandy's don't ever get on.
So, yeah, it's such a large, on the buyer side, it's a large amount of money you're spending.
Yeah.
On the agent side, it can be a lot of liability.
It's a ton of liability.
So
agents need to remember that they, out of anybody, actually hold the most amount of liability.
Yeah, they do.
Like,
home
there's
inspectors
very little. You guys, you hold such little liability.
Yeah, I mean, home inspectors will tell you. Home inspectors will tell you that we hold a ton of liability, but we don't.
You do not.
Especially if you write the contract and you write the report in a way to protect you from issues, and as long as you do an actual good job. Yeah. Right. And if you're acting in good faith. Right. So at the end of the day, said it 100 times, but read. If you have questions, ask questions.
I don't understand why people don't, especially because this is like one of the biggest investments in their life. Yeah. Thank you. I just don't understand why you wouldn't do the due diligences to, it just doesn't make any sense to me. You're putting in so much money for this, and to not look at everything is wild.
It is. And every now and then it happens once, maybe twice a year. It doesn't matter. We're usually pretty good at finding things. We're usually really good at uncovering some shady flipper stuff, right?
Oh, yeah.
But every once in a while, you just get that lemon of a house.
Yeah.
Everything looked good. Mm-hmm. There was nothing wrong with it. I mean, relatively speaking. And then after they move in, it's just a nightmare, right? It's just buying a lemon car, right? Mm-hmm. Look great, test drove great.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, it's just problem after problem, that nobody could have foreseen, but nobody reads the agreements to figure out, like, well, who do we go after? Like, who's responsible? Because sometimes there can be, right? Especially if you can figure out that there was covered up defects and things not disclosed.
Which is going to be tough. Side. Yeah.
But it is hard, right? Yeah. But you still need to understand, like, what if that happens? Again, it's rare. But maybe once, twice a year, we get that lemon house. Like, man, like, yeah, we tested all this stuff. Like, there was no issues, and it sucks, issue after issue. But it goes back to 2-3 hours, right? Mm-hmm. And you just had a flipper that was just really good at hiding stuff. And it held together just long enough to get to closing.
Yeah, and I think it goes back, Courtney, to your point of like, why do people not read this, or why do they not take the time to understand what it is that they're signing throughout any point in their transaction? But I do think it's intimidating, but this is why who you hire matters a ton, because they should be able to walk you through, here's what you're signing, here's what it means, here's what you can and cannot do. Here's how I can help you, here's how I cannot help you. And that is my job, right? Is to be able to explain this to you and then say, I run down the entire purchase agreement and then tell them, I need you to read through this and then I'm going to have you sign off on it. But if you're not having somebody actually hold your hand throughout this, then it is really intimidating. Buying a house, especially your first one, but no matter what, buying and selling real estate is one of the most stressful things you're ever going to do. And there's so many moving parts behind the scenes. And my thing is, the state of Virginia is caveat emptor, which means buyer beware.
Yeah.
Which means we're not telling you nothing. Seller has to disclose nothing. All of the onus of figuring out what's wrong with this house falls on the buyer. Why are buyers going unrepresented? We're literally telling you.
Why are they waiving inspections?
Thank you. We're literally telling you, buyer beware. You're screwed. If you don't have somebody helping you and you don't know exactly what you're signing and you don't know exactly what you're doing, you are oh so screwed. We are telling you that. And buyers are still like, I don't need an agent. Agents are useless. Okay. Good agents are not useless. Okay. But if you're hiring your buddy who's been doing it for 12 seconds, or you're not interviewing, or you're not ensuring that you've hired either a good agent or a good home inspector, somebody who's going to help you through this, then yeah, you're screwed. You're absolutely screwed.
Yeah, 100%. So again, read.
Please.
Just, if nothing else, read, in our agreements, what to do if you think we missed something, right? Because there's a proper way to do it.
And ask questions. If you don't know what you're reading, ask us, please.
And that way you know what we don't do too.
Yep.
So
I love getting the phone calls of people who actually have read the agreements, because we do have a thing in there about mold, to where it's like, hey, if we don't have to find mold, and they'll call and ask questions about that, and I'm like, yes, you have read the agreement.
No, that's how I feel too. Like, I want you to ask. If something is unclear, please don't ever feel stupid. I want you to ask me, what does this mean? So that we avoid dramas later.
Yeah.
I put a little gold star by their name.
I know, you're like, you're my favorite. Thank you.
All right. Well, anything else?
That's it. Till next time.
See you next time.
Gnarly.